Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're talking the Sons of the Lion. Why it is Sapphon who is Master of Sanctity, and not Asmodai. Spoiler warning to begin, as the events we're discussing today are from the Warhammer 40k novel, Master of Sanctity, by author Gav Thorpe. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself, without spoilers. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, for as long as I've been immersed in the world of 40k, the hobby that we all know and love, when it comes to the Dark Angels, it's really been Asmodai who has been the face of the chapter. Yeah, you can argue maybe Azrael or even the Deathwing, but when I think back to my earliest days in the hobby as a kid, it's Asmodai who stands out for that chapter. In that iconic 2nd edition Angels of Death codex, it's Asmodai who has that awesome full page artwork that really just encapsulated and evoked the mystery of the Dark Angels chapter. He was the Dark Angels. However, for all this time, then and still now, Asmodai has not been the Grand Master of Chaplains, the High Interrogator, the Master of Sanctity. That honour instead belongs to Grand Master Sapphon, the Finder of Secrets. Now, I'm pronouncing it Sapphon. I know some people call it Sapphon, but I'm going to go with Sapphire, so Sapphon it is, at least until I hear an audiobook that tells me differently. Anyway, I digress. Sapphon's appointment for me always felt a little strange as a kid. Why this mysterious name was Asmodai's superior. And it is a feeling that's kind of lingered. He's always been this name in the background, while Asmodai retained the spotlight. However, thanks to the novel Master of Sanctity, we've not only received a fantastic contrast of their characters and relationship, but also an answer to that very question, why Asmodai is not the Grand Master of Chaplains. Now, this story takes place on the world of Pesina 4, a world that's been plagued over the years by the Greenskin Menace. The Dark Angels, having been the world's saviours once before, had once again returned to the world to eradicate the Orcs. Now, the Dark Angel assault had focused on the capital of Cadillus Harbour, and led by the Deathwing, High Interrogator Sapphon was at the forefront of the assault. And immediately with Sapphon, you can't help but be struck by his manner. It really comes across as a stark contrast to the one you would expect from the Dark Angels. As Sapphon and his squad of Deathwing are scouting through the remains of a basilica, one dedicated to the honour of their chapter no less, they catch a glimpse of looters. Human looters, not greenskin. And the Deathwing immediately react by raising their guns, with their sergeant, a marine by the name of Calderane, declaring no mercy. Human or not, the Deathwing are going to annihilate them. However, it's Sapphon that stops them, ordering the Deathwing to not fire. Now, normally you may not think that this is too much of a big deal. They are unarmed humans after all. However, this is in direct opposition to Supreme Grand Master Azrael's decree, as Calderane argues to Sapphon. Apparently, Azrael has taken martial command of the entire system, ordering a curfew on the entire population, to be enforced with ultimate sanction. Essentially meaning, if you break curfew, you're dead. And that is the Dark Angels for you in a nutshell. 100% loyal, but 100% uncompromising. These looters defied the curfew, and so they face the punishment. That is the way of the Lion. That is the way of the Dark Angels now. And yet here, Sapphon refused that. And when Sergeant Calderane reiterates Azrael's decree of ultimate sanction, we get a really telling insight into Sapphon's nature. "And I am here, at your side, and I tell you not to fire, Brother Sergeant," Sapphon said calmly. "Look at them. They are starving. If they can exchange detritus of the past for a few loaves, we should not punish them for trying." Now, I don't know where to begin with this. As a first real glimpse of Sapphon, what a contrast this is to Asmodai, to the rest of his chapter, to his Primarch, even to fellow chaplains from other chapters, who are usually the most fervent and extreme of all Astartes. Here Sapphon countermands his Supreme Grand Master's order for simple compassion, realizing why these people are here, to simply survive. It's not just a black and white situation. As much as I've loved Asmodai over the years, I have to tell you that this really endeared me to the High Interrogator. Sergeant Calderane even argues back how they are transgressing on a mausoleum of the chapter. Yet again, Sapphon won't be swayed. It's a really great introduction to the character, showcasing the virtues he possesses, the traits that he brings to the table as Grand Master of Chaplains. Now the squad continues in its advance through the city, with one of the Deathwing making a chiding comment about their fellow company the Ravenwing, which Sapphon checks by remarking for them to worry about the Orcs instead. But then a little later the Marine makes another comment, which Sapphon decides to ignore, making the mental note to speak with the Marine later, after the mission has been completed. And this results in a private Vox conversation with Sergeant Calderane, asking why the chaplain isn't chastising the Marine for his unbecoming attitude. Now Sapphon informs him there's a time and place for those conversations, but it eventually leads to Sergeant Calderane inadvertently stating that Brother Asmodai is far stricter in how he deals with these things, which results in an outburst response from Sapphon of how he is not Asmodai. So it's clear not only from Sapphon's reaction, but even from the behaviour of the Marines themselves, the chapter as a whole expects the more fervent, passionate and volatile responses and actions, such as Asmodai's, not the more mindful nature that Sapphon appears to wield. Now regardless of all this, their mission continues. However, in the usual twist of fate, it's not long until Sapphon is called away to deal with a problem: Asmodai. In contrast to the calm compassion and contemplation we've seen from Sapphon, Asmodai is, as you'd expect, everything the complete opposite. Rather than Sapphon's subtle demeanour, Asmodai has barreled straight in and demanded the colonel of the defence force submit himself for investigation, resulting in an argument with Captain Issachar of the 3rd Company, who was actually trying to work with the colonel at the time. And so once Sapphon arrives, he politely apologises to the captain for the intrusion and calls Asmodai away for a matter they have to discuss in private. And so here, we finally got Sapphon and Asmodai face to face, and the revelation of the tension between them. Now the first thing Sapphon asks is what Asmodai's even doing there, as he'd ordered him somewhere completely different to accompany the 9th Company, and Asmodai informs him that his greater duty was here, dealing with the colonel's apparent treachery. So right from the off it's clear Asmodai wasn't even following orders. In fact, quite the opposite. And their conversation is tense, very tense, with Sapphon demanding Asmodai refers to him by his rank as Grand Master, having to threaten Asmodai with an oath of silence, just to stop his constant interruptions. But the key here is Sapphon is always calm and collected, speaking his words quietly but confidently, the polar opposite to the fiery, argumentative Asmodai. After informing Asmodai that his uncompromising nature is valued by the Supreme Grand Master, Sapphon coolly, calmly, deliberately lays the verbal smackdown on his fellow chaplain, really showcasing why it is him who is the Master of Sanctity, the Grand Master of Chaplains. For all your accomplishments and your seniority, the Inner Circle chose me to succeed as Master of Sanctity. Sapphon looked at the other chaplain. You are unstable, Asmodai. Worse, you are destabilizing. You are a catalyst for dissent. And the harder you react against the infractions of others, the more they will resent you for your lack of fraternal understanding. The other chaplain looked as though he was going to explode, the blood vessels in his neck pulsing with the twin beats of his heart, a particular scar above his right eye, almost pure white against reddening flesh. Still, Sapphon would not allow Asmodai to speak. There are two places where you are of use, Asmodai. The first is in the interrogation cell. The second is on the battlefield. Sapphon strode to the door and looked left and right theatrically, before turning back to Asmodai. The chaplain's eyes were narrowed, jaw twitching with indignity. There was no verbal or physical abuse that Sapphon could employ that would make his companion repent of his actions. So only the threat of further humiliation remained. I see neither, and yet here you are. I ask again, why are you not with the Ninth? Now this for me is just an absolute masterclass of wordsmanship. Through his words alone, Sapphon not only scolds his subordinate, but shows why Azrael made the right choice. And again, he always does it in this composed manner. I don't know if we have any Trekkies amongst us here, but it almost gives me those old school Captain Picard vibes from The Next Generation. How he could just completely own a situation with just the way he spoke, the way he conducted himself at all times. Although Sapphon is an Astartes, I really get that statesman vibe in the way he conducts himself, yet at the same time not accepting any you-know-what. And yes, I know it's heresy to cross franchises, but you know what I mean. You really get the feeling that these problems with Asmodai just keep coming up, time after time. So Sapphon's just hit that enough is enough moment. Yet still he doesn't lose his cool. He uses his intellect and his way with words to completely maneuver the situation, to the point that Asmodai is left in no position other than to admit he disobeyed orders himself. The very thing he would rake someone over the figurative coals for himself, or most likely literally knowing Asmodai. It's a really great moment and contrast between not only the two characters, but in many ways the two aspects of the Dark Angels chapter itself. The zealous, all-encompassing pursuit of their guilt, being Asmodai, and their duty to the Emperor, the protection and service to the Imperium, being Sapphon. I really hope we get to see more of Sapphon in this manner in the future, because in a way he exemplifies the nobility of the Dark Angels that were, the aspect that they are in danger of losing if they go too far. And it's really that was perhaps the root of Sapphon's ultimate appointment over Asmodai. After Asmodai has been dismissed, Sapphon reflects on how some things need to be done without noise and fuss. And we're told that that was why the Inner Circle chose Sapphon over Asmodai. Asmodai's attitude has many virtues in its own way, but he's become so obsessive, so zealous, it's really consumed his nature. He can't see things any other way. It's persecution or loyalty, no in between. And that mindset has inevitably bled over into his actions. He has lost that balance within himself, that capability for reason. And that is why Sapphon was appointed over him, because he is that voice of reason, the voice that the Dark Angels chapter still desperately needs to hear. And honestly, I have to say, if the portrayal of Sapphon in Master of Sanctity is anything to go by, it was absolutely the right decision. In thinking back to the moment in the Basilica, with the human looters desperate to retrieve anything worth of value, had it been Asmodai there, the men and women would be dead, for simply trying to survive, to feed their families. Thanks to Sapphon, they might yet live, and so too will their loyalty. Perhaps it's someone who can still see those grey areas. That's exactly what the Dark Angels need as a chapter. But as always everyone, what do you think? Why do you feel Asmodai was not appointed to Grand Master of Chaplains? Why do you feel that Sapphon holds that title instead? For me, do you see the nature of Sapphon as why he received the appointment over Asmodai, as he would tell his brother? Is it because the Dark Angels chapter needs someone who still has that capability for reason? That Asmodai embodies that zealous pursuit of the fallen too much, that if he became the heart of the chapter, it could well push them over the edge. Like me, do you see Sapphon's statesman-like composure as a big benefit to the chapter? Or, given their nature, do you feel it's only a matter of time before Asmodai assumes the role himself? That Asmodai represents the true nature of the chapter as it has become, and that it is only him who can guide them into the future? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too? But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.